Okay, hopefully recording this works this time. So we're gonna step through setting up Visual Studio setting up SFML for Visual Studio. Over here I have this library example folder. Let's just go ahead and re-download from the beginning. So on the SFML page, we're gonna go to Download, SFML. This is the Visual Studio download. You can download 32-bit or 64-bit. Most computers these days are 64-bit, so that should be fine. We'll just go ahead and click on that. And we'll download. I already have it downloaded, spoilers. So we will grab this, and I am going to extract, and I'm also just going to rename this to Visual Studio 64-bit because I'm also going to do a code blocks video and I want to be able to tell those folders apart. So let's just let that extract. Okay, we have our library folder. This is SFML. We'll need to keep track of 3 different folders. So we have the bin folder, the binary folder. This is where our SFML library code is compiled into DLL files, which we will need a little later. The include folder, this contains the HPP files, so again, remember this is where our function declarations go. This will help our IDE know what functions are available, what classes are available in there. So we're not going to actually mess with this folder, we just need to know the directory. Then the lib or library lib folder. These contain the actual library files. So we're here. I am going to copy this directory, and I'm going to put my Visual Studio project in here as well. We'll go ahead and open up Visual Studio. I have my cat whining in the background. I don't know if you can hear that. We're going to go ahead and create a new project. Empty project. It's going to go into my library example folder, so it'll be in here as well. I'll just name this SFML Visual Studio 64-bit. Okay, so here's our empty project. We're going to start by creating a main file. So over here, if we go to Learn, it has tutorials and it has a setup for Visual Studio. It goes through a lot of this, but I'm actually going to come down here to the bottom and copy the example code they give us. This is how we'll know if things are building or not. So we're going to create a new file, main.cpp. We'll paste this in here. And at the moment, nothing is going to build because we haven't told Visual Studio what SFML is. So it's like, I can't find that folder, that file. I don't know what it is. Now, if you're following along with the documentation, we're going to need to set up the project itself, point it to where the SFML library stuff is. So to edit the configuration, we're going to right-click on that. Before I do that, however, I want to highlight one little thing in our library. So in here, we'll see that we have just one without any extension. This one has a D for debug, and then these have static. We don't care about that. We're going to build this in release mode, and we're in 64-bit. I downloaded the 64-bit library. If you downloaded the 32-bit library, you'll need to change this to x86. But we downloaded 64-bit, and I'm going to set this up for release. So we're going to right-click on here and go to Properties. I need to make sure we're on all configurations, specifically the release configuration, 64-bit. If we're setting this up for debug, we need to use this version of the library. But we're setting this up in release mode, so we're using this one. Okay, oops. I don't know what just happened. Where'd my properties go? Alright, we're going to be working with the C++ section of the properties and the linker section of the properties. So under C++ General, we have additional include directories. From our library directory, additional includes. I'm going to grab the include folder and copy this path. I'm going to paste it in there. In the linker, we're going to go to the additional library directories, come over here, copy the library path, the lib path, paste it in there, apply, and then we'll need to tell it which libraries we're using from there. So that was these two steps here: C++ general setup include linker general setup the library directory. Now under linker input, we're going to tell it which library files we care about. We're not going to use like the networking or the audio. And it gives us some examples here for our starter code for the test file. So we go to additional dependencies, click on that, click on edit, and we'll do SFML graphics.library, SFML window.library, and SFML system.library. Hit OK, hit apply. That should be all we need to set up. Down here, this talks about those D files for debug. And then down here, this is how to set up static. We do not need that. So we should be done with the configuration process. Now, at the moment, this should build, but we'll probably run into some running errors because even though we told it where the library stuff is, for the actual executable file we've been working with, it doesn't have access to how SFML works. So it's going to complain that we're missing DLL files. So we'll go ahead and try to run. Can't find the SFML graphics DLL. So what we're going to do, this is the working directory. Here's my project file. So this is where the actual program is running from. I'm going to come over here to the bin, the binary folder, and the libraries we're using, I need to copy the corresponding DLL files. So we'll go back to Visual Studio and try to run it now, and we get the little green circle. So we have this successfully set up with SFML 64-bit for Visual Studio, and from here, after we get the test program running, we can start working on the main project as a whole. It's good to try to step through the process of linking the library yourself, but I'll also probably just zip this folder and you can use this if nothing else works. But that is the steps for setting up Visual Studio with SFML.